first we have how to start worrying. First half of the book, I was like, and then when I started getting towards the end, I was like, what is she talking about? What the heck did I just read? Today, I am doing a June/July book reading wrap-up. I didn't do one of these in the month of June, so I thought I'd combine both June and July into one. In my most recent video, I did ask you guys if you enjoyed seeing TBRs, if you liked seeing wrap-ups, like what kind of videos you like to see, and the consensus was you guys do like to see wrap-ups. I like to do wrap-ups myself, albeit I haven't been doing a ton of reading lately or as much reading as I'd like to do, but that's kind of why I'm combining 2 months into one. I kind of set myself up for failure because I started the year off probably way too strong, because I think in the month of January I read like 13 books or something, and like that's not necessarily normal for me. Like back in 2020 it kind of was, because I had a lot more time. And this year, it seems like I've been smacked with life, like right in the face. So I've been dealing with that. Thankfully, they're all like good things. I actually had my first shoot this past week, so that was really exciting. So I got to get out of my house. And then I also have been shopping for a house, doing some house shopping. So because of the housing market right now, it has taken up a lot of my time. And to share a little tidbit or fun fact about me, I'm a very research-based person. I probably do too much research. Yeah, I've been spending a lot of my free time doing that, on top of like my work is super busy right now. Anyways, I did do some reading, so I will go over those. Let's just go ahead and get into it, because I think I've explained myself probably way too much. One of the recent books I finished reading was The Westing Game by Ellen Raskin. This is like a grade school book, or I think a lot of people read this in grade school. I never read it before. I saw it on a Reddit post that was basically like, what are the books you'd recommend reading at least once in your life? And this was a highly upvoted book, so I picked it up from Thriftbooks and I gave it a read. Now, this book was fine. I found it pretty entertaining. I could definitely tell this was like for younger kids or like grade school, because the like hero or heroine of this book is like a kid. Her name is Turtle. And it's basically like kids being smarter than the adults, that type of situation. And basically the plot of this book is like solving a giant murder mystery, and then at the end you have this giant fortune. You have the possibility of winning, and there are 16 different characters in this book, or at least characters trying to figure out or solve this murder, who are related in some way, shape, or form to the guy who died or got murdered in this book. I don't want to spoil it for you guys. It did get a little confusing to me at times because there were just so many characters, but I did figure it out by the end of the book. But overall, I was kind of confused on why this was like one of those like books you must read sometime in your life, because to me, those types of books are like life-changing books, and I was like, I feel like I read these all the time by like Agatha Christie. So on Goodreads, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. One of the other books that I read, I believe I read this in the month of July, is Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars, and the reason that I read this is because I have been seeing this everywhere. And this YouTuber that I watched, she highly recommended it, and so I was like, sure, I'll give it a go. That's been on my TBR, and I could use some motivation, because she said this like really motivated her. And like, I didn't think it was a bad book per se. I definitely could see how it would be motivating. I think this was just a little bit more like heavy-handed motivation that I don't personally find motivating, like, you know, suffer the pain and enjoy the pain type of motivation. Like, this guy basically ran a marathon, or like an ultra marathon, on like 2 broken legs.
What?
So that to me, it seems insane. Like, not something that I would like to do in my lifetime, like a lot of the things in this book. He's got crazy perseverance. He has an intense mentality that I would never get close to. So I did see how this is like cool. Like the part that I enjoyed was actually seeing through his eyes like how far the human body can go, because it can do very impressive things. I probably will never get to pushing my body that far, because I don't see anything in my life that would cause me to do that, but it was pretty good. I mean, I enjoyed it. It wasn't something that, again, I was like, oh, this is life changing. Like, I'm like in a totally different mindset now. Of course, you know me, I gotta have a Stephen King read, and this month I read Everything's Eventual, 14 Dark Tales. So this, like the title implies, is a compilation of 14 tales. The title, Everything's Eventual, there's actually a short story in this that is titled Everything's Eventual. And for it being like the main header title, that was probably one of my least favorite short stories in this book. Like, there were some really good ones and some not so great ones. Some that I like had to look up afterwards and be like, what the heck did I just read? I did have some favorites in this book. Some of my favorites included The Death of Jack Hamilton, which was kind of like a nonfiction-y type of story, I believe, or like loosely based off someone in real life. And I love those types of books and short stories, so that one I really enjoyed. I think actually that one's kind of polarizing. Like, I think people either really like that or really don't like it. I also enjoyed The Road Virus Heads North, Lunch at the Gotham Cafe, 1408, of course, because I feel like that's another very famous Stephen King short story. And that was, I mean, those were my favorite. I will say this, I did skip The Little Sisters of Eloria, because I know that is like, I believe it's like a short story before the Dark Tower series, or it's involving the Dark Tower series in some way, shape, or form. And I have not gotten to that yet, so I didn't know if there was going to be any spoilers in that. I didn't want to risk it, so I did skip on that. I rated it a 3 out of 5 stars. Not the strongest rating for me when it comes to Stephen King, but it's because, like I said, there were just some stories in there I just didn't really care for, and Everything's Eventual to me, I really felt like that dragged on. And frankly, I feel like this is very telling. Considering how this is like a quote-unquote shorter Stephen King book, it took me like a month to get through. That's a long time for me in Stephen King. Usually I'm pretty speedy. So the next book that I read was actually a book that I read on my Kindle through Libby, and that is Down the Rabbit Hole, Curious Adventures and Cautionary Tales of a Former Playboy Bunny by Holly Madison. So I went through a little binge watching session of The Girls Next Door when I was like recovering from my second vaccination shot. And since I was just kind of like hanging out in bed, I stumbled across The Girls Next Door on YouTube and watched all of the episodes. And mind you, when I was little, like younger, when I was a kid, I used to be obsessed with the show. Like, I idolized the 3 girls, like Kendra, Holly, and Bridget. I just loved their lifestyle. It seemed so fun. It seemed like they were living in almost like a sorority house style thing. So anyways, now having watched that through different eyes, now that I'm much older, I was kind of curious, like, what are the implications of living a lifestyle like that? And so Holly Madison wrote this book. I think she released it in 2015, and I finished this book in one sitting. And I did give it a 4 out of 5 stars, which I know seems like a really strong rating for me, because I feel like I'm pretty stringent or like harsh when it comes to my ratings. I'm pretty critical, but I really enjoyed it, and it's probably because I came off that like nostalgic show binge that I was like, oh, I remember like all these details from the show that she was referencing in the book. I just found it so fascinating, and it's crazy. Like, it makes sense now that I'm older. At the time, of course, when I watched it the first time when I was younger, I had no idea the behind the scenes of like the loss of identity, the control that was placed over these girls, the day-to-day life that they lived. And now reading it, it's crazy. And I'm very happy that Holly Madison is in a different place in her life. And I think it's cool to see like the reverse side of the coin of like her having to live this lifestyle, or putting herself kind of in this position and then like building up out of that, like being able to pull herself out of that hole. So yeah, I thought it was very entertaining. If you're a fan of the show or ever watched the show, I think it's worth a read. I literally read it in one sitting, and I rented it, so I didn't even pay for the book myself, and I was thoroughly enjoyed for an afternoon. So 4 out of 5. Next section of the video with a little disclaimer here, because I did make a full video on all the books that I'm about to talk about. Now, I just added these into my Goodreads. I added them after the fact, and I kind of discussed this loosely in my last video, where I didn't know if you guys wanted me to add books to my Goodreads as I was reading them, if I was creating a video around them, because I don't know if you guys like a video surprise or you want to guess what the video is about. I don't know. Like, I just didn't know how to do it. So anyways, I just omitted these from my Goodreads and everything until I put out the video, which I think I put it out now last month, so about a month ago. But these were technically part of like my June reading, or like I finished these in June. I believe I started some of these in like May, but because there's 7 of them, it did take me a bit to get through, a bit of time. So let me just show you guys what I'm talking about, because I feel like I'm just dancing around the bush and like it's just getting really confusing. So they are 7 books based on anxiety, and I made a full video talking about my experience with anxiety, and essentially the idea behind the video was putting myself through book boot camp. I picked 7 of the best-selling and most popular books on anxiety, self-help books, and I wanted to see if they actually help me, especially if I've read them all one after the other. So I'll put the link down below for that video if you guys want more in-depth information on that, because I'm just going to really briefly tell you guys what I rated them and like 1 or 2 sentences on each book and my general thoughts. Definitely watch that video because I felt like I did make a breakthrough, which is very significant to me and my journey with that. First, we have How to Start Worrying. First, we have How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie. I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars, and this one I did find kind of outdated, like the anecdotal stories shared in this. So I thought it did have some helpful tidbits, and the main issue that I had with this book, it was a little bit oversimplified. It was like, if you think this, then just try to think like this, and your life will be better. And for me personally, I'm like, trust me, I've tried that. I've tried to overthink myself or outthink myself or like trick my mind, and sometimes, you know, that's just not how things work. Another one is this, which is Cognitive Behavioral Therapy Made Simple, 10 Strategies for Managing Anxiety, Depression, Anger, Panic, and Worry. I gave this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. This was like the workbook of all of these books, and so this had like the most actionable things, and it, like the name implies, did really break down all of the steps into like how you form thoughts and then base emotions around that thoughts and then behaviors around the emotions. And so I found that it really helped point out some of the cognitive distortions I have with my thoughts. I found it helpful, and it does give you some helpful tools. If you're like the type of person who's willing to like sit down and break it down, you might really enjoy this. Unfuck Your Brain by Faith G. Harper. This was hard for me to get through because the lingo used in this was a little cringy, if not very cringy at times. I said this in my video, but I stand by it. This book really did feel like I'm not like a regular mom, I'm a cool mom. And to me, I just found it very distracting. There was some helpful points, like when she was talking about the different parts of the brain and how they send signals to each other and they work together. That was probably the most helpful part of this book, but other than that, I found, gosh, it was hard to read. I was like, who talks like this? No one talks like this. I'm really realizing I forgot to add this in my Goodreads, so I'm going to have to do this after I finish filming this video. But I did pick up this book, which is Guts. It's actually a graphic novel by Raina Telgemeier. I don't remember what I gave this in my video. I think I probably gave it like a 3 out of 5 stars, if I remember correctly, or something around that rating. And I thought it was cute. Like, I guess the author makes a lot of these graphic novels that help younger people work through some of the issues that they might be experiencing in real life. So I think this would have been a very good tool for me maybe when I was younger, that normalizes a lot of things that kids or teens might have a hard time talking about, like seeking help, getting therapy tools that'll help relieve some anxiety, understanding why you might be thinking a certain way. I thought it was cute, but since I am older and this is not necessarily made for me, I couldn't give it a 5 out of 5, or at least I felt like I couldn't give it a higher rating than what I gave it, because I didn't find anything new in this that helped me personally. But I think it is a cute, nice little graphic novel for kids and teens going through anxiety. Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and It's All Small Stuff by Richard Carlson. I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. This basically had 100 different tips on dealing with anxiety. And so because of that, it was super digestible and very easy to understand, which I found very helpful. But on the same coin, there were some bits in here that I didn't really care for. I'm already a people pleaser and conflict adverse. So I need to maybe support myself a little bit in life as well. Overcoming Unwanted Obtrusive Thoughts, a CBT-based guide to getting over frightening, obsessive, or disturbing thoughts by Sally M. Winston and Martin N. Safe. I gave this a 2.5 out of 5 stars. This was good in the sense of like it helps you unstick sticky thoughts. That's what they're referred to in this book, as sticky thoughts. They could be anything involving like obsessive or harmful, maybe even like disgusting or disturbing types of thoughts. For me, why this was appealing is because I know I'm a catastrophizer and I have catastrophizing thoughts. Like I always think worst case scenario is going to happen. And so I thought maybe this would help me get out of that mental rut that I find myself in sometimes. Kind of did, but I also found some of the arguments in here or like the type of scenarios she would lay out, like really odd. First half of the book, I was like, and then when I started getting towards the end, I was like, what is she talking about? Last but not least, we have The Highly Sensitive Person, How to Thrive When the World Overwhelms You by Elaine and Aaron. I gave this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. This probably was among the most helpful books out of all of these books because I am an HSP or a highly sensitive person, and this really helped me identify that. There have been a lot of times in my life that I've wished or wanted to not be so sensitive to things, and I've been told I'm very sensitive, even to like loud noises, or I just get overwhelmed really easily. Like, that's the best way I can put it. And so understanding why I feel that way and some coping tools for that in this book, I think are helpful. You want to basically embrace who you are and not fight against it, because you're never gonna change it if that's who you are. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this June/July reading wrap up. I have some exciting videos coming up for this channel, but I just want to hop on here, give you guys a little brief update on what's going on in my life, some of the books I've been reading, why my reading has been a little tapered back, and why I haven't been uploading my monthly wrap-ups lately. But I hope you guys are well, and as always, I hope you guys are happy and healthy, and don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe, share with your friends and family, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys!